Welcome to Film Detour, a podcast where two longtime film buddies take you down and around the back alleys and side streets of cinema.
With the occasional left-hand turn.
I'm John Napick.
And I'm Bob Mueller. So let's go. John, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's hit it. So this is a big shout out to an old buddy of mine, Ken, who's a big fan of this movie. So Ken, this one's for you.
Today's episode, we're talking about the Friends of Eddie Coyle.
1973, directed by Peter Yates, starring the one, the only, Robert Mitchum. Now, we know Robert Mitchum from a million movies, so we're just going to rattle off a couple. The first one that comes to mind, without question, is in Out of the Past.
Out of the Past, one of the great film noirs.
Oh, my God, it's one of the best, absolutely. Thunder Road. I learned recently that he wrote the original story to that. Not the script, but he wrote the original story for that.
And then Crossfire, another early noir.
Yes, terrific stuff. And he was in, of course, Night of the Hunter.
Yeah, he really, in the 40s, he was coming up, but in the 50s, he really kind of hit his mark. Max Cady.
Cape
plays
Fear.
Cape Fear.
Cape Fear. He is so good in that, man. You know, I know the remake, and De Niro's very good, and he's maybe in some cases more menacing, but Mitchum only has to just raise an eyebrow to scare the shit out of you.
And then Ryan's daughter.
Yeah.
David Lean.
Yeah, the Lean one. Yeah.
It's a really good movie.
He was also in The Last Tycoon,
Right.
the Elia Kazan with De Niro.
Oh.
And it was also Teresa Russell's first movie.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah, she was just a kid.
And then the Yakuza.
The Yakuza, yeah.
With Richard Jordan, who's in this film.
And Farewell, My Lovely, the remake later on with Charlotte Rampling.
Right. Very long career.
To say the least, but
yes.
The great Robert Mitchum.
So we'll step back and talk about Peter Yates, the director.
A great director. He just has a wide variety of stuff that he's done over the years.
Started out in TV doing The Saint.
Bump, 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 bump.
With James Bond,
Roger Moore. Which actually, Roger Moore did The Saint when he was doing James Bond. So he's really
it was simultaneous?
When he was James Bond, he was really The Saint.
Oh, I got you. And he did some TV, but Bullet was his first real big movie.
Oh, man. Steve Areno. Just great stuff. And, of course, the chase scene.
Right.
I heard that Peter Yates was a race car driver at one time. And I guess, if you see some of his films, they have some really interesting chases. Certainly Bullet's one of the best.
He did one movie before that, a British film called Robbery, but when they were looking for a director,
I heard about
they
that.
did not think an Englishman could do an action film or like a car chase film. And of course, he proved them wrong.
Yeah.
And such a great 60s kind of California feel.
But it's
to
not
it.
what you think it's going to be. You have to watch it again and go, wow, This is very subtle in so many different ways. And of course, Steve McQueen is always terrific.
And then he did John and Mary with Dustin Hoffman and Mia Farrow. Mm-hmm. Love story.
Murphy's War with Peter O'Toole.
Really? Again, jumping from one genre to the other.
The Hot Rock.
Love it.
One of my favorite heist movies, and it's hilarious.
William Goldman.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I always forget about that.
Yeah. For Pete's Sake with Barbra Streisand, which once again, we jump, to another level of directing, which you think, wait, how does this guy do this? And of course, Mother Jugs and Speed.
Mother Jugs and Speed.
And
just the title alone.
And I just say, what?
Well, it's got Rocco Welch in it.
There you go.
Is she Mother?
She must be Jugs, right? Typecasting.
And then out of nowhere, Breaking Away. Such a great little character movie.
Yeah, it's such a small, independent type film, right?
Yeah.
The Deep with Jacqueline Bisset. God bless her in the T-shirt.
That was a Peter Benchley movie.
Peter Benchley.
Written movie. And The Dresser.
The Dresser's great with Finney and Tom Courtenay. It's really, once again, a small film about these two men.
Yeah.
That's terrific, and their relationship.
Yeah.
And he also did Suspect with Cher and Dennis Quaid.
Oh, Cher does a pretty good role for Cher.
Yeah,
It was like one of her early roles.
Yeah.
And then screenplay by Paul Monash.
Yeah.
And this is from a novel by George Higgins called The Friends of Eddie Coyle. George Higgins basically invented the Boston crime novel.
The dialogue is so snappy.
Yeah.
It's so dead on. It's beautiful. But Paul Monash, he's been around a long time. He started in the 50s doing General Electric Theater and Studio 57, Kraft Theater, Playhouse 90.
I love this one.
Schlitz Playhouse.
I was just going to say, I love it. Schlitz Playhouse.
Pretty funny. He did The Untouchables, Peyton Place, Judge for the Defense.
And then he went on to do some TV movies, Salem's Lot, Stalin.
He did a great version, his screenplay was a great version. Richard Thomas and Ernest Borgnine in All Quiet on the Western Front. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's really good.
And then let's go on to cinematographer, Victor J. Klemper.
Holy cow.
This guy
do a lot of work.
Well,
man.
we've mentioned other cinematographers who've kind of done a lot of movies that we've loved.
Right.
He's done so many great films that we're fans of.
Early Cassavetes. Husbands.
Wow.
Right? They Might Be Giants with George C. Scott, Joanne Woodward.
The Hospital with George C. Scott.
Yeah, he really is a who's who of 70s movies. The Candidate.
Another interesting movie he did just before this, which is pretty good. I just saw it, Seamus with Burt Reynolds.
I never saw it.
Takes place in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Very similar in look to this, like on the street. He's got a lot of different styles, but he's really good at realism.
Absolutely.
Street locations.
Well, think about the grittiness of the way The Gambler looks, you know?
Right.
I mean, that looks so gritty. And then he does something like The Hospital, which, I guess mostly it's, the hospital lighting because most of it takes place in the hospital. But, Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon, Sidney Lumet. That is such a great movie that's so iconic.
It's fantastic. And it looks great.
Looks great on the street, New York City, Brooklyn, amazing. And then another funny movie, Slapshot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the guy did, it seemed like he did almost every movie of the 70s.
Right.
He did Coma.
So Coma is interesting because that's like a whole different type of movie. It's like a horror film in a way. Or like a,
it is. Sure.
And it's really creepy, that movie. It just looks great,
And Justice for All. And he did Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John.
And we can't forget Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, he did that. I did not know that. I missed that one.
How do you go from Eddie Coyle to Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
And another Cassavetes with Peter Falk, but he didn't direct it. It's Elaine May, Mikey, and Nikki. All right, moving on. So the music, Dave Grusin. Dave Grusin has been around a long time.
So he's originally is he a jazz musician originally?
Yes, and he did a lot of television. The Wild Wild West. I did the Ghost of Mrs. Muir. He did the theme to It Takes a Thief.
Oh,
yeah, it's a great theme song.
And we can't forget I know he did some music to Gidget.
Gidget, of course. Sally Field. He did Maude and Good Times. The Name of the Game. Remember the Name of the Game?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did that as well.
And then some good movies. The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight.
Right.
The Yakuza, we mentioned.
The Front with Woody Allen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And just one last thing, because I wanted to mention this. He did the original Beretta thing.
Wow.
Yeah, but before Sammy Davis Jr. actually did the lyric part, the singing part, he did the music, the Eye on the Sparrow song.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so more cast members, because it's a really good cast.
It's loaded.
Peter Boyle as Dylan.
Peter Boyle's the best.
Yeah.
This guy comes off as so authentic in anything he does. He goes from Joe.
A really interesting movie, very 60s feel.
Yeah, it's a really mean, racist guy.
Kind of the original Archie Bunker, but meaner.
Exactly. And he from that, he did The Candidate.
The Candidate with Robert Redford.
Totally different character.
Right.
A wise guy is just going to get this guy elected. It's great.
Steelyard Blues.
Taxi Driver, he's the wizard.
And, of course, Young Frankenstein.
Well, this is it. He bounces all over the place. He could do all kinds of stuff. He did Fist with Sylvester Stallone.
Yep.
He did Hardcore with George
C. Scott.
Yeah.
Hammett. Remember that?
Yeah,
That's Coppola
absolutely.
movie.
Absolutely. He did Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, John. Not the Poseidon Adventure, but Beyond the Poseidon Adventure.
Wow, he went beyond the...
What the heck were they doing? I mean, Irwin Allen couldn't make enough money, I guess.
Is it the same boat? I don't think I saw Beyond.
It is the same boat, Jet.
It is?
I swear to God.
So they're still in the boat?
I have no idea.
They're on the other side of the boat.
I have not seen that movie, but I know that Peter Boyle's in it.
Gene Hackman and gang were in the back of the boat.
Yeah.
They're in the front of the boat.
Yeah, Gene Hackman is the priest.
And then there's Richard Jordan as the cop in this, Dave Foley.
Yeah, he plays a real good prick, doesn't he, John?
Yeah. And he's done a lot of stuff, TV stuff. He's in Naked City,
right.
Ben Casey, a lot of early TV. In an interesting Burt Lancaster movie, Valdez is Coming.
He was also in the Yakuza.
Right, he's like the young disciple, right?
Mm-hmm. Logan's Run.
Logan's Run.
He was in Woody Allen's Interiors.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then there's Alex Rocco.
He's great. The first thing that comes to mind when I see Alex Rocco is The Godfather. Mo Green.
Mo Green in The Godfather. Everyone knows him from Mo Green.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have Steven Keats. I believe this is his first movie.
Yeah, absolutely. He was actually in All My Children in 1970. He was in Death Wish, The Gambler, Black Sunday. He was in the TV show Toma.
He's a really interesting young actor. I mean, he
Yeah.
has that face. And,
He's got a great face.
Yeah. And then finally, Joe Santos.
Once again, the classic Italian-looking guy could be a gangster, could be a police officer,
Right.
and he definitely played both.
Okay, off we go. I just want to begin us talking about the movie with this promo line, which I think kind of sums it up.
Right.
It's a grubby, violent, dangerous world, but it's the only world they know, and they're the only friends Eddie has.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about this movie.
I love the first shot. It's shot through the branches of a tree, and you're thinking, well, why would you set up a shot like this? And then there's a guy. He comes out of the door, middle-aged looking guy, blonde hair, very 70s kind of sideburns and stuff. And then he goes into his garage, and he gets into his Mercedes-Benz, and he backs out.
Yeah.
And as he backs out, we pan over, and then we see a guy sitting in the car watching him through the branches. That's why we have the perspective we do.
He's taking notes.
That's right. And that's Alex Rocco.
That's Alex Rocco. But what's interesting about that opening scene is it's so picturesque suburban. It's like fall
absolutely.
leaves.
Yeah.
You got the nice fancy house and the Mercedes, as you mentioned.
I grew up in a neighborhood like that, John.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a nice suburban neighborhood, so it's very familiar to me.
Yeah.
Which makes the movie even more interesting of things that unfold as time goes on.
And then it cuts right away to he's driving in what's clearly Boston. It's in South Shore, Boston, which is a neighborhood, and because he pulls up and it's the South Shore Bank.
Yeah. He's Mr. Partridge, and the reason we know he's Mr. Partridge, no, not from the Partridge family, but he's Mr. Partridge because
No bus.
No bus. He pulls up in his car, and we see on the parking space Mr. Partridge. So we gather he's the bank
He's like an
president or
executive at the bank, yeah.
Right.
And then you see Joe Santos in a car. So clearly these guys are doing some kind of stakeout.
You bet.
So you know something's up. And then right at that moment, I'm pretty sure we get this jazzy guitar soundtrack going. Dave Grusin. Very 70s.
Very 70s. I really love the soundtrack.
Yeah.
So Alex Rocco gets up out of his car, and he has his trench coat on and a hat, and he walks into the bank. And I love this because he goes up and asks the teller, can I have change of 10? Now think about that in today's days, John. $10, give me change. You can't do that in a million years unless you have a bank account.
Obviously, they're doing, again, as we said, they're staking out the bank in some way. But we did see, I just have to mention, just prior, the armored car pull up. And you see the guys come in with cash.
Right. And you know it's the 70s, too, because the guy has mutton chops holding the shotgun. So Alex Rocco's casing the bank. He's eyeballing where the cameras are and how the whole setup is behind there. And then he basically just leaves.
Yeah. That's it. And again, this movie has a lot of scenes where you kind of get little bits of information and you're putting this story together.
Well, that's it.
And they don't spill it all at once.
That's exactly right. And this script is really well constructed. It's very tight. This is not a movie to watch if you just want to sit down and doze in and out. This is not a movie you want to fold your wash or something, or be on the phone. You got to pay attention to this movie. But if you pay attention to it, it all comes together in a beautiful jigsaw puzzle.
And then we see Robert Mitchum
at the diner. And what's really amazing to me about Mitchum in this movie is, and you can tell from the first shot, this is not the Mitchum we know.
No.
This is not the straight-backed, tough guy who's got all the confidence in the world.
Yep.
This is a beat-up, world-weary guy.
Right. He's like every man.
Yeah.
He's just like this guy.
Yeah. And it was a shock to see him this way because that's not the Mitchum we all know. So
he comes into this very cool old-school cafeteria. And he gets in line. I love the sign on the wall. Please don't line up. Step in at any section of the service area. It's kind of like a bar, cafeteria.
It's like the old places on 9th Avenue, John, right?
You just go get a piece of corned beef and potatoes and cabbage.
Right. Keep it moving. So Mitchum comes in, and he sits down.
Yeah.
And he's facing the camera. He's on the right-hand side. He's facing the camera.
Right.
And there's a young guy to the left of him, long hair, 70s kid.
That's Steven Keats.
And we just see his back. And Mitchum's eating a piece of custard pie. And this guy starts talking. And he says, I can get you pieces by tomorrow night. I can get you probably 6 pieces. I got more now, but I promised someone the slot. Eddie is not happy about this.
No.
Eddie does not want other guns from somebody else's lot because he
Right.
doesn't want them traced back. That's the whole problem here that Eddie's worried about. And the young guy says it's all right. And Mitchum says, all right, nothing.
Nothing.
And that sets up right here and now how Mitchum really feels about this situation, and he wants this thing to go the way he wants to go,
Right.
and that's it.
And because there's a reason for that.
Right.
And he tells him.
He explains how he becomes Eddie Fingers,
Yeah.
that he made this mistake years ago, and the guns got traced back to a guy, and he went to jail. And because of this, they took Eddie's hand and put it in a drawer and kicked it shut. And I love how Mitchum says it. He goes, hurt like a bastard.
And what he says is, what really hurts is they put your hand in there and you know it's coming. You can't do anything about it. That's what really hurts.
I love the analogy he gives with his Catholic school teacher / nun. Back when I was a kid, the nun would come over and whack my knuckles with a steel a steel ruler. And my wife went to Catholic school, so I know about all this stuff.
My brothers went to Catholic school.
You lucked out, John.
Here, I'm going to strike fear in both of my brothers.
Yeah.
Sister Mary Joseph.
So he said that the nun would whack his knuckles. And he said after a few more times of this, she said, put out your knuckles. And he said, no. and so she ends up smacking him in the face with the ruler. And he said, it's the same thing.
Right.
So I don't want this to happen again.
Yeah.
I got 4 extra knuckles on this hand that I shouldn't have, and I don't want to have this happen again.
Clearly, Eddie's buying these for somebody.
Right.
He's kind of the delivery guy.
Yeah.
This is like his job, and he's taking it very seriously. And he's talking to this young guy he's never met.
Yeah.
And so he's being very cautious.
Yeah. Wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
I'd be too.
By the way, Steven Keats' character, Jackie Brown.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I know his character's name is Jackie Brown. Never once do they mention the guy's name. And then we go over to a bar, an old man's bar, John.
Industrial blue-green walls, fluorescent lighting.
The big wooden bar with the soft cornered rims.
Yep.
You know?
And it's hazy as all get out because of the smoke.
Yeah. So we get introduced to 2 principal players here, Artie Van and Dylan. He's the bartender.
Dylan, played by Peter Boyle.
Dylan tells Artie that Eddie's looking for him. And Artie makes a call from the bar to Eddie. Quick call, and then he comes back and sits down.
I love the phone is in the back room it's like this old one bulb room with the cases of beer,
Yeah,
et cetera.
absolutely. And that's exactly what those places look like. So,
yeah. And then we cut to one of my favorite elements of the movie. It's this empty quarry and this big long boat of a lime green Charger. and there's Jackie, the gun guy.
With his yellow shades.
Yep.
It's all very 70s.
He drives through this quarry and he sees this car.
With some great funky music. I mean,
yeah.
you would have thought Quincy Jones did this soundtrack.
And there in the car is Jack Kehoe.
Yeah,
another character
I always
actor.
remember him from The Sting. He's the one who gets his nose smashed.
And the Pope of Greenwich Village. What's interesting about the scene for me is you can see Keogh's like he's bitching about the money he's getting. It's not enough. And Jackie's like, I know what you're spending the money on. And this guy's clearly an addict.
As long as you can function, it's okay with me. But if you screw me up, I'm going to fix your ass.
But what's interesting to me about this and the rest of the movie is these are small-time players in a way. Like Jack Kehoe, they're not all making a ton of money. Some people are, but clearly not Eddie and not this guy.
No, it's hand to mouth to say the least. They got to keep the jobs coming.
And he gets the guns. They're in a paper bag.
They're in a shopping bag, John. They're in a shopping bag, and on the shopping bag it says the Garden of Eden. It's a real old lady kind of shopping bag from a supermarket or something. And what's neat about this is the way the shot is done is you see our boy Jackie Brown walk past, and the camera pans over to the bag, and then we cut to this dark alleyway where Mitchum comes up in a car, and he gets out of the car. And the way it's lit, as he gets out of the car, you see the bag.
Same bag.
And then he walks over to another car that's parked.
Yeah.
And he lays it down, and it's lit once again. It's beautifully lit.
Yeah.
But what's really neat is the bag gets put down, and you see exactly what's going on here. That bag is going to go in this trunk
Right.
that he takes the key from, opens the trunk.
He takes this is an old 70s thing. He
Magnetic
takes
key.
the key from behind the license plate.
Right.
That's where,
Which was
in
on a
some old
hinge.
cars, that's where the gas filler was.
Yep. Mhm. I just love the way it's lit because
Yeah.
the shopping bag's on the left-hand side of the frame,
Yep.
and you can see what it is. So we know exactly what Mitchum is doing there in the first place.
Right.
He bought these exact same guns, because
Right.
they're in the bag, from this guy.
From Jackie, brings it, puts it in the trunk.
Right.
Eddie goes into Dylan's bar.
Right.
He walks right up to the bar. But behind him, you
Right.
see Artie Van
Right.
in a booth.
And Artie Van gets up.
He just
goes
gets
outside,
up, goes out right to the car,
Right.
grabs the guns.
takes the guns. Yeah.
Just very workmanlike. It's like they do this every day.
And what I really love about this cinematographer is, and the way the movie is shot, these night scenes are night scenes.
Yeah.
And when
Right.
Mitchum walks out of this car, I mean, there's this little light when he comes out of the car, but basically when Mitchum walks into the dark, he's gone. He's vanished.
Yeah.
It's black, and that's what things look like.
I really hate when they light these scenes with
Yeah.
big spotlights
Yeah.
down the street, and you see who does that? Who sees
Well, later in the 70s, maybe it was because of competing with television or whatnot,
Maybe.
they used to light the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
So you could walk here, walk there. It didn't make any difference. They didn't have to do different setups. But this cinematography is beautiful.
But interesting, Eddie explains to Dylan, and this is where we kind of learn some of Eddie's story, that he's looking at a sentence coming up. He lost this appeal. He's again, you get little bits and pieces of information. He's going away for 3 to 5 years. We don't know why, but we know
It's connected to Dylan
Right.
because Dylan had him do some kind of a job, and Eddie says, I wish I never did that. And Peter Boyle goes, I wish it never happened.
But he's got no sympathies. Like, you told me you needed the dough, you got the money up front.
Right.
You know what? You wanted a job, I gave you a job, you got caught. And then we cut to daylight, broad daylight, and there's Dylan. He's coming out of the subway, he's walking across the street, and it's this big kind of courthouse square.
Some kind of common, yeah.
And there he meets Richard Jordan, Dave Foley, the cop.
He's a plainclothes detective.
Yeah.
And
Leather jacket.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know he's a detective. It looks like just some young guy. And Dylan is talking, he knows there's something going on, but no one's telling him anything.
you can tell he's a cop because he's breaking his balls. He's saying, you guys, every 3 weeks or so, there's some sort of grand jury going on, and all you guys just go underground. You all just kind of disappear. You should have unemployment. And Peter Boyle gets pissed off at this because he's like, fuck you.
And then funny enough, he just gives him a $20 bill.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy hands him the 20 and says, have a nice day. Foley is such a prick.
Yeah, and just walks off.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the same suburban street we saw earlier.
Right.
And inside the house, we see Mr. Partridge coming down the stairs.
Yeah.
He's dressed, clearly ready for work.
Ready for work. And he's walking down the stairs and he sees his family in the dining room. And the
Through
kids,
the doorway.
yeah, the kids are sitting there. The wife is sitting there, and the cereal boxes are out. It's breakfast time.
They're kind of just sitting
They're
there.
frozen.
It's a weird
It's
scene.
very creepy.
The
They're-
wife looks very dazed.
Yeah. They look frozen and automatic. See, I just got the chills on the back of my neck and he suspects something. There's something wrong here.
He steps into the dining room, and we do a reverse cut, and you see on either side of the door are these guys.
And the one lead guy says, Mr. Partridge,
But what's weird about these guys is their outfit.
the masks.
They got these clear masks.
They're clear. So what they do is they kind of take your face and
Yeah.
they morph it. Got the dark eyebrows, the mustache.
Yeah.
And honestly, John, it kind of looks sort of like a Burt Reynolds mask.
Right,
Because the
right,
dark
right.
mustache, dark eyebrows, but they look really weird.
It's
and
really
Alex
spooky.
Rocco is, you have that Alex Rocco kind of bass type voice,
Yeah.
scratchy kind of bass voice, and he's talking through this little slit in the mouth, so it's extra creepy.
But they have these
It's like a horror movie.
but they're all like identical black hats, green overalls.
Yeah.
And these masks. It's almost like a Devo kind of thing. It's weird.
Yeah, but it's creepy. So Scalise says, we're going to your bank, you and I and my friend. And what I like about this is I like a stick-up man with good grammar.
Yeah.
You and I and my friend.
But he's polite.
He's very polite. My other friend will stay here with your wife and children to make sure nothing happens to them. Oh, that's good.
And what's kind of poignant is the banker, he kind of walks up to each of the kids and he gives them a kiss.
Yeah.
Again, the wife is just looking dazed.
Yeah.
He kisses her and it's like, you do what these men want. All they want is the money. And Scalise is like, he's right. All we want is the money. We don't get any kicks from hurting people.
But if you don't do what we want, at least one of them will be shot. Understand? Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, imagine that, John. You wake up in the morning, you're going about your business, and you got 3 guys with guns holding your family hostage. It's
and you have no choice but to follow along.
Absolutely not.
I mean, the guy seems polite. You think, well, if I do this, this all will go okay, and you just can only hope.
But the thing I mentioned before, I grew up in the suburbs in this kind of a,
This happened to you?
No, but I grew up in this kind of a neighborhood, and the thing that's really creepy is these look like the safest neighborhoods in the world.
Right.
You couldn't be touched in a neighborhood like this. And what's also creepy and is a theme throughout the whole movie is this stuff happens in the light of day.
Yeah.
Broad daylight.
Yep.
The birds are singing outside. There is no insulation.
Right. So they get him outside. They cover his head. They make a big deal of putting this black wrap around his head, and they have him sit in the back of the car
on the floor. Yeah.
Here's a nice detail. They get in the car once he's masked, and they take off their masks.
Right.
Because obviously if they're driving in the car, they don't want anybody to see these masked men.
Be a little obvious.
So this guy, he's really got no options. He's got to follow through, and they have him go inside to tell these people in the bank what's happening.
To behave.
And open the back door.
Do everything you got to do.
Oh, and they also tell him he's got 1 minute to open the back door. So he starts a stopwatch. So they got this guy pretty much wrapped up, and he's got to do what they say.
Right.
He's got no time to do anything else.
So we're waiting for the safe to open, and Scalise, Alex Rocco, says to the bank president, he goes, "What time's that vault open?" Because it's a time lock.
It's a time lock.
And he says 8:48. So we're waiting, and we're waiting, and finally, Scalise gets pissed off because he's looking at his watch. You can see him look at his watch. He goes, "When the fuck does this thing open?" And you think he's going to blow everybody away in the bank. And luckily, like a little beat more, click, and the light goes on, and now they can open the bank.
That 2 minutes lasts 5 minutes. You know what I mean? It's like when you're waiting.
You bet.
It's just time just slows down.
It's an eternity.
But there's one shot I do have to mention. So everyone's sitting on the floor, and there's a one shot. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the Great Train Robbery. One of the robbers in mask, he's looking at the people on the floor, and he just points his gun right at them.
Right.
Just like right at camera practice.
It almost feels like slow motion, John.
Yeah.
And it's just really dramatic, and you think, what exactly is this guy doing? Is he going to shoot them? Because it felt like he was going to shoot them.
It's basically don't make a move.
Don't make a fucking move without saying a word about it. So they get the money, and they go into the car, and they take off, and they take the bank president with them. They put the hood on him and whatnot, and they drive to some area. I don't know if it's the Bay or something.
It's kind of Boston Bay or something. Yeah, the harbor.
So they
feels like you're across the harbor from Boston.
So you see the bay in the background, and they tell this guy, okay, get out of the car and just walk forward, count to 100.
Yeah.
And then you'll be all right. And the guy's walking, he's tripping on stuff, and
it's like garbage. You think he's
gonna fall into the bay?
That's what I thought. He's walking right towards the water.
And I'm counting to myself, going, how far is he going to count? Is he going to fall in there? He only made it to 30, John. He only made it to 30. So he's a pretty brave guy to take that hood off. I think I would have gone to 100, sat down, or whatever.
Yeah. You see them in the car, and they're watching him walk off.
Right.
He's walking, he gets to 30, he takes the mask off, and you cut back to a wide shot, and the car's gone.
Everything's gone. So it's if they dropped him from the air or something,
I mean, in a way, you got to look at these guys. It's very professional.
Absolutely.
This thing was like
nobody got
planned
hurt
to the T.
Nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
So these guys are professionals. And then we cut to basically the home life with Eddie Fingers.
Which, in contrast to the upper middle class suburban neighborhood, this is kind of like the working class.
Absolutely.
It's just like a big contrast, right? You think Eddie's this gangster, but here he is.
He's a family man.
He's a family man. And
blue-collar family man. The way it gets set up, which I think is beautiful, is Mitchum, this big bear of a guy.
Yeah.
He picks up the garbage can on his shoulder, this beat up old, tin garbage can.
The old
galvanized steel ones. And he puts it on his shoulder and he walks there. It's all beat up. He walks over and then clunk, puts it down and holds the garbage from falling out and then basically gives his daughter a kiss goodbye.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that's family man, blue-collar guy.
Yeah, and he goes inside, and it's an old galley-style kitchen, no cabinets.
Right.
It's got like a little industrial sink. It's great detail, like just the way these houses look.
That's exactly what it would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an old-fashioned kitchen. There's
Absolutely.
no fancy
Nope.
things to it at all.
And the other shocking thing, once again, too, we're so used to Robert Mitchum
Yeah.
having the babe on his arm.
Right.
Rita Hayworth,
Right.
Jane Russell.
Yeah.
And here it is, this short, kind of chubby, average-looking housewife.
Yeah. Helena Carroll's the actress.
And it was a shock to me because I just thought, well, wait, that's not the kind of woman Mitchum's supposed to be with.
Well, he's right. The character's middle-aged. This is a middle-aged wife.
This is what the couple would
Yeah.
look like. Absolutely.
And I have to say, it's a testament to his acting that at this point in the movie, you forget you're looking at Robert Mitchum.
Absolutely.
He is just some kind of Joe Blow from South Boston.
And I love how he walks up to his wife at this point and just gives her this big amorous embrace and then starts kissing her. And he's kind of getting worked up in it and whatnot. And she says to him, Eddie, it's morning, which cracked me up, But, I guess, love has no time of day for Eddie Fingers. And then we cut to a meeting in this park area with Eddie. And lo and behold, it's
Dave Foley.
It's Dave Foley again.
Yeah.
So Dave is working the neighborhood here.
Well, that's how detectives work. They
I
have
guess.
like stool pigeons all over and people talking to them, and it's like gathering information.
But it was interesting. Just a few scenes ago, it was Peter Boyle, and now a few more scenes later, it's Eddie.
Surprisingly,
Fingers.
it's Eddie. Yeah. He's trying to get Foley to assist him.
And he says, "Look, I've helped you out before, so I need you to help me out." And basically, Foley's not buying it. He said, you did a couple of things,
Right.
but they were not that big a deal. I mean, you told me about a robbery that was going to happen. It happened 15 minutes later.
Right.
You told me about some guys going to get hit, and the guy got hit before we could even get there. So, you're not really doing much for me. And what's interesting about this is Mitchum's body language.
Yeah.
He is slumped. He does not have that back straight-shouldered thing. He's slumped. He's defeated. His hands just hang at his sides.
No, Foley's the guy in charge.
Yeah.
And Eddie then spills, well, I know about some machine guns. He's trying to draw Foley into helping him. And then we learned basically the reason Eddie needs his help is he was running liquor across state lines for Dylan. He got caught. So he's facing a federal charge in New Hampshire.
Right. It's not something Foley can really do. I guess,
he can put a call in maybe.
Put a call in, but Foley's not exactly breaking his back to do something for Eddie.
Yeah, you don't see Foley reaching over the aisle here. He's just kind of stringing Eddie along.
But Eddie's telling him, look, it's embarrassing, to my kids if I go to jail. I don't want to embarrass my kids. And this is really hurting him. And you feel terrible for Eddie.
Yeah.
Even though Eddie's a petty criminal, he just looks so pathetic.
And he mentions helping Uncle.
Uncle being?
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam.
It's a federal charge. And, obviously these guys are local criminals in
Now, if you're going to
Boston.
help Uncle, we see what we can do about this.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're going to have to do a lot more work for Uncle.
And what's interesting with the movie, it's just a whole bunch of people, and they're all trying to work some kind of deal. They're double-crossing each other. It's just such
Double-crossing left and right.
Yeah.
No honor among thieves.
There's no honor. This isn't like these Godfather-type movies where everyone's like, got this code. There's no code.
No. It's amazing. It's amazing. So Foley says if you can deliver on this machine gun thing, he'll put a good word in for him with the U.S. attorney.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't deliver, he says all bets are off. And so Eddie knows at this point, if he doesn't get something really working here, he's going to jail.
Right. So we see Jackie Brown pull up in his car again.
Yeah.
And he's by the Charles River.
He goes, sits on a bench.
Behind him is this old beat-up panel truck. There was a guy in my neighborhood who had a truck just like that. The window was a little bigger. He sold candy out of it. It's like a little food truck kind of thing.
Right. But it didn't look like an ice cream truck because you'd have that window where you'd...
There was a tiny one.
This little tiny window there. What the hell kind of window is that?
And you hear this voice coming out of the window. Hey, you. Hey, man.
You selling something?
Like, what? And Jackie's like looking around like, what the hell?
Yeah, because he's a hip guy. He knows what's going on. And this dopey kid, this long blonde-haired dopey kid comes over. You selling anything? And Jackie goes, maybe. Depends.
Yeah, he's not going to like, oh yeah, I'm the guy with the gun.
Yeah. Who the hell are you, you big dopey kid?
So the kid runs back to the truck and he's talking to someone, and this young woman comes out. They're kind of like college students,
I guess.
And she comes walking over and he's like,
who the hell is this?
No. Who the fuck are you? You can tell he's not happy with these two people.
But I like what the blonde guy says. This is Andrea. And he says, I don't give a fuck who it is. So she says, we want to buy a machine gun. And Jackie looks at her like, are you kidding me? He said, look, you want to go burn your fucking bra, all right. But what you going to do with a machine gun? And she says, we're going to rob a fucking bank. And you go, what the heck is this? This young girl?
Well, I'll just give you a reference for this.
Yeah.
So back in the 60s and 70s, the Weathermen was a group. They did all these robberies, and they're kind of anti-government.
Yeah.
And there was a robbery in Boston in 1970. They actually killed a cop during a bank robbery. They were robbing banks to fund the revolution. So Jackie is like, look, I got two problems selling machine guns to people like you. The first is selling machine guns. That's life in this state.
Life.
So we know the stakes are pretty high.
You got to be out of your mind to sell them.
So then we cut to South Weymouth Bank, and we're inside the bank.
Robbery in progress.
Yes.
And this time, Alex Rocco or Scalise and his guys, they have different masks on now. And they're even creepier, I think, to some degree. They're rubber masks over the top. There's kind of like an old man mask, and they have ski caps over the top.
I thought the clear mask was scary. It's funny you thought these are scary.
I think they're both scary. I even think that the next set of masks they do for the next job, just the ski mask with the slits, which you don't even see people wear anymore.
Right.
I think those are scary too. Maybe I'm easily scared. I don't know. But you get these three creepy guys with guns.
That's why you're not a bank robber.
That's probably why, yeah.
This is in progress.
Kept me honest.
And what's funny is the scene begins, this young, pretty girl's knocking on the door. She's an employee.
Yeah.
And this manager, young bank manager, lets her in. We see things are going on.
Right.
And we hear another bank manager kind of go through the same spiel.
I've done this before. This is the fourth time in 40 years I've been robbed. Just listen to what these guys have to say. I have my family at home. They're in danger.
Right.
Please don't be a hero.
He's like,
that's just being stupid.
So they're doing the robbery, and of course, the young manager.
Always one guy who has to do it. It's just like airport, John.
Yeah.
You know, the guy in airport who goes before the guy goes to the bathroom, grab him, he's got a bomb. Always one guy.
So you see the bank manager with his finger on the alarm button under the desk.
And the guy goes, "What did you do?" And he shoots him.
Of course. You know, why press that button? I don't understand.
For what purpose?
And next we go, again, to another great little Boston location. We see this Charger pull into this big parking lot, and it's like this supermarket. And here's old domestic dad, Eddie, walking down the lot aisle with a cart full of groceries.
Right.
Great detail.
It's got the Wonder Bread in the bag.
Pulls up to the car, and he's like, put the guns in the bags, put the bags in the cart. That's all he says. Jackie opens a trunk. So Eddie's
take the bread out, put the guns in.
So he's got bags with bread for the guns, and then he's like, "What about these other bags?" He goes, "Those are my groceries." He goes, "Your wife make you do the shopping?"
Look, if I have to explain married life to you,
you wouldn't believe me anyway.
You wouldn't believe me anyway, right? As he's getting these guns put in by Jackie, he sees in the trunk the machine guns.
The machine guns.
So Jackie says, "You want to see one?" He goes, "I don't even want to look at it."
Yeah.
I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be anywhere near it. That is life in this state.
Exactly.
So Jackie drives away. Eddie takes the guns, and no sooner does Jackie drive away, he goes directly to the phone booth and he calls Foley.
Which is funny. He calls up, and he's like, "Is Foley there?"
"Stop farting around. Put Foley on."
He says it with a nice little Boston accent.
Farting around.
Farting. And clearly, again, Eddie's just too old for prison. He doesn't want to leave his family. I think it's a nice touch to have him just with that shopping cart and groceries.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. Then we cut to this suburban commuter train station. Jackie Brown He pulls into the lot. He's waiting to deliver these machine guns. He's waiting for these revolutionaries in this panel truck to show up.
Right.
What's interesting to me about the scene is he's just sitting there. You see a car go by, or this little pickup truck. It's like an old beat-up landscaper's truck comes in, circles. And then as the truck goes by, we see in the truck is Foley and two other officers.
Right.
And then we start to see around the station these agents kind of coming out of nowhere, getting out of cars.
Getting in position.
All getting in position. Some have rifles, some have shotguns.
And then the dopey kids in the van pull up.
Yeah.
And they start coming out. And Foley says, do you recognize either of them? And the guy goes, they look harmless to me. And Foley says, they're after machine guns, remember?
Yeah. Yeah. And
they're dopey kids, but dopey kids with machine guns in hands can be pretty scary.
So the kids walk up to Jackie, and they're like, come on, let's do this.
Right.
And Jackie's like, And they're like, why? And he goes, I'm going to sit here.
For 2 hours.
For 2 hours. He's going to wait it out and make sure, because as you said, he's been eyeing everything.
Right. Well, he's got a lot to lose.
He's extra cautious. And the kids are like, well, fuck this. We'll come back. And they go, well, let's go get something to eat. And they go. They leave in the truck. So Jackie's just sitting there. And then the cops have a dilemma, right? It's like, what do we do?
They were thinking, should we have taken them then? But we have nothing on them, really. They didn't do anything yet. They're just standing by the car. So he goes, all right, fine, take them now.
So Foley has to make that call.
Right.
And so they start moving in. And
it's a very quick chase scene, but it's really intense.
Yeah.
Because the cars are moving all over the place.
Well, I thought, if you're first seeing this movie, you're going, oh, goody, Peter Yates, here comes a car chase. And he sees them, Jackie sees them, and he just tears out.
Yeah.
It's like,
and I thought they were going to have some long car chase, but it's very quick, but it's pretty damn intense because it's boom, 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 boom.
He's only got so much way he can go.
The lot's pretty full, yeah.
Yeah. So they capture him, obviously.
And he says, you knew.
You knew.
You knew. That bastard. I'll take care of that myself.
Yeah.
So we cut to Eddie and Foley in this little diner.
Yeah.
So Eddie wants to find out, how it went with the busting of Jackie with the machine guns. And is Foley going to see that Eddie stays out of jail as a payment for helping out Uncle, in essence. Now, Eddie's so nervous. And Mitchum plays this beautifully. He's so nervous that when the waitress comes up and gives him the coffee, he just flinches, like almost out of his seat, like, what the hell was that? Because he's so focused in on, come on, please, just do this for me. Come on, I did what I had to do for you. Please, please, please do this. So Eddie says, so that does it, right? And Foley goes, does what?
Yeah.
Now, you know right then and there that that's it. This guy's not going to do jack for him.
Well, it's interesting. Foley says, look, I made the call. I did my job. But if you don't like what it got you, I can't help you. But he's saying the guy, meaning the prosecutor in New Hampshire, the federal guy, he's a hard ass. And he wants more.
This guy's a mean guy, he says.
Yeah.
But basically, you're doing a nice little start.
Yeah.
But, you're going to have to show you've turned over a new leaf. You're going to do more things. And Eddie's saying, you want me to be a rat.
Yeah.
You want me to be a rat now for the rest of my life.
Permanent fink.
Permanent fink. Exactly right. And
you feel bad for him.
And Foley just looks at him like, you decide what you want to do. You make a decision you want to do that, that's up to you. You don't want to do that, that's also up to you. And Eddie gets really mad and he goes, I should have known better than to trust a cop. My own goddamn mother could have told me that.
And Foley says, everybody should listen to his mother.
And he gets up and walks away. What a prick.
So the next thing is we see the four robbers again. They're in a car. They get to this house, another suburban house.
Right.
They got the masks.
Right.
This time they're different.
Yeah, they're the old type of ski masks you had in the 70s where they had almost like these slits for eyes and a slit for mouth.
Weird look.
They looked weird.
And they sneak into this house and you think the same thing's going to happen. And you hear the couple coming downstairs.
Right.
They're waiting in the kitchen. And next thing you know,
they're basically licking their chops.
Yeah. And next thing you know, Foley pops out. He's got a gun. And with all these other cops, and they get the drop on him.
April Fool, motherfucker.
And that's it. They're caught.
Yeah. They're toast.
And then we meet Eddie and Foley at a bar.
At a bar, right.
Yeah.
And this scene to me is really heartbreaking because He thought before that Eddie couldn't sink any lower. And he's so desperate right now. He's clinging at straws.
Yeah.
He's now willing to give up Scalise.
Yes. To Eddie, this is it. This is going to get me out of here.
This is his trump card.
And he's worried. He's like, I can't do no time. These guys, they've got friends, and I wouldn't live to get out. So he knows. He goes to prison. He's a goner.
So he wants this witness protection program kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's talking about going to Arizona or something. So he's got this whole kind of scenario in his mind, and he says, okay, you wanted Scalise, I can give you Scalise.
Yeah.
So Foley says, I guess you haven't seen the paper.
Oh.
And because we've seen, in the movie that they already got these guys, and this is the big trump card, the coup de grace that he's going to have.
So disappointing.
And it's heartbreaking. Foley says to Eddie, it's too late.
Yeah.
We already got these guys.
He
if
just
you would have come to me, last night, then I could do something for you. But now I got nothing for you. And he's got, that's it.
Yeah.
He's toast. He's got nowhere to go.
So suddenly Dylan is at this train station and he meets this guy. He's kind of like the mysterious man in this black he's the only guy in the whole movie that looks like a mafioso. I just have to say. He's got the black suit, the hat, Borsalino hat, right?
He's actually the actor James Tolkien who played the principal in Back to the Future. The bald guy.
Right.
The thing is, they feel that it's Eddie Fingers, and the man wants him to get Eddie Fingers. He's now contracting Dylan as a hitman to do the job. And the man, quote unquote, wants it done now, tonight. And, I love this scene because Boyle's really good in doing these, he does these combinations of things, and you never quite know where he's coming from because you can tell he's really tense and nervous about this situation. But at the same time, he's pushing this guy back. He's really kind of getting in his face and say, look, you want this thing done, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't do it that way. And I know the man wants something, and he's asked me to do things for him before. We never had any problems.
Right.
I don't want any problems. This is the way you do things.
Well, it's like he's such an opportunist. He's like, he's going to make money killing poor Eddie.
Right.
He's now like the hitman.
Right.
What a douche.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely a two-face for sure. No ifs, ands, or buts.
So back at Dylan's bar.
And this scene is the most heartbreaking scene for me in the movie because Eddie walks in, and it's like he's like he's Felix Unger, with no place left to go. He comes to his friend's bar, and he just is going to come there and just talk to him, and you feel terrible because you know exactly what's going to happen.
Well, he's looking for a little teen sympathy, and also, sadly, or poignantly, I'll say, Eddie, he kind of feels bad for Scalise. Because he's kind of a friend of Scalise's.
Right.
And
he didn't give him up.
No.
He was going to give him up, but now he feels bad that he was given up. He walks into the bar, and he sits down, and he gives a hand signal. And he gives like your thumb and your pointer finger, like about 2 inches up.
Yeah.
And then he takes his hand, he spreads his fingers a little wider, which means he wants a shot in a beer, which is an old man signal, which I thought was great. So Dylan walks up to him, brings him the beer and the shot, and he goes, "So you making any money?" And Eddie says, "Not exactly. If you want to ask me, I'd have to tell you, I'm not having a very good day."
Really?
That's the understatement of the century.
So as a consolation prize, Dylan offers to take him to the Bruins game, Boston Bruins.
Right.
Playing the Blackhawks.
Right.
We'll have some dinner. He's just setting him up, but let's, come back
John,
tonight.
that makes it even worse. And the thing is, too, Dylan is waxing philosophically about Jimmy Scal and Artie Van. And saying, you win some, you lose some. They made about $250,000 last month. Then the Fuzz get mad, and then they kill those two guys, right? And Eddie goes, "Yeah, I'd really like to know who set them up." And Peter Boyle stands there and just goes, "Yeah, I bet they would too."
So I read this scene took 3 days to shoot. Actually,
really?
Yeah. So they must have been to 3 different games, but it's very authentic feeling.
Oh, my God, absolutely.
We're at the Garden. The Bruins are playing the Blackhawks. Real people in the stands, obviously. I don't know how. They must have just sectioned off this little couple of rows or something, because there's all these great cuts of faces.
But they capture. I mean, he captures faces in such a great way.
And Eddie shows up.
Well, they're both sitting there, and
so Dylan and Eddie are sitting watching the game.
And he says, my nephew, remember that guy gave me the tickets? My nephew's going to be coming too.
Yeah.
He's late.
Eddie's like, I'm going to get some beers.
Right.
He gets up and goes, and then the nephew shows up.
Yeah.
So the kid's like, what are you doing here? We're going to do it here? And Dylan's like, he'll never suspect. We're in front of all these people.
Yeah.
Like what? And poor old Willie Loman Eddie comes back with beers.
He's
carrying beers, gets to the crowd, makes his way in.
You can tell he's in the bag.
He spilled some,
Yeah.
He sits down. They're watching the game, and there's some great footage, and Eddie calls out, Number 4,
Bobby Orr.
Real Boston.
I love that. I love it because you really feel like he's there at the game. He loves the game. Look at this kid. What a future this kid's going to have.
And you hear the crowd roar.
Right.
You see them all excited.
Right.
And then there's a really sad line. He's like, Jesus, what a future this kid's got.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, because you have no future.
Oh, it's
and the thing that's really upsetting about the scene, and every time I watch it, I feel ill because it reminds me of the Hitchcock thing with the bomb. You show the bomb under the table while the two guys are talking, and the bomb is under the table the whole time,
Ticking
and it's
away.
Excruciating.
Yes.
And the scene seems like it takes forever. You're going, please, just get it over with. But there's one thing, the crowd's going crazy.
Well, a fight breaks out on the ice.
Yeah, fight breaks out on the ice, right? And there are two girls with powder blue eyeshadow on, and one of the girls goes, knock him out! That's a hockey fan. Unbelievable.
So the game, you see them walking out of the arena.
Right.
Cut. We're in the front. We're in the car. They're driving on the highway somewhere, and Eddie's in the front seat. Dylan's in the back seat. The kid is driving.
And Eddie is bad.
He's wasted.
Yeah.
He's just like.
And he's just kind of sloshing around, and he says, "Great game."
Yeah.
And then he falls asleep.
He just falls
I just got a
asleep.
lump in my throat because he's actually palling around with these guys. The guy who's gonna kill him?
Yeah. And so they discuss the plan while the poor guy is sleeping right there.
He pulls the gun out. He puts it up to Eddie's head. Bang.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Over.
No warning, really. The kid's just like driving.
But the kid's reaction's unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
That was really loud. That's all he can say?
Well,
that was really loud.
Well, that's the thing, right? Guns are loud, and imagine being in a car and that thing going off, like, hell yeah.
Yeah, but the guy's brains are just blown out. Would you react to that? Wow, that was really loud. Yeah, that's why I used a 22, he says.
And the kid's like, is he dead?
Yeah.
If he's not now, he's never going to be. Oh, shit,
Good
man.
line.
Sucks. So they pull up, and in front of this bowling alley where Eddie's car was,
right.
I love the sign. It's 10-pin and candle pin bowling.
Right.
Now, candle pin you only get in New England and Canada. It's like
the thinner pins or something?
They're thinner pins, and the ball, there's no holes. It's a smaller ball. You just palm it and you roll it.
Kind of like bocce or something, right?
Almost, but in a bowling alley, yeah. 10-pin is regular bowling. So, yeah, beautiful location, great little neon sign, and there's a car. The kid notices it's the same looking car, and Dylan, fucking guy's got everything. He's such a douche, and he's got everything planned to a T. Yeah, it's the same. Cops are going to be looking for this kind of car.
You drive me past the river, I get rid of the gun.
Yeah, and we're done. And they drive off. And then we cut back to this frickin' Courthouse Square location.
Yeah, it's Foley and it's Dylan.
Where we first see them, and when we saw them at the very beginning.
Okay, so Foley and Dylan are walking, and Foley says to him, you gave us Scalise, and we're grateful.
Yeah.
You can't talk about Coyle. You can't talk about Coyle. It's all right. It's all right.
Well, I was trying to figure that out.
It's all right.
Is Dylan fed him a line that he doesn't really know, but he suspects? You know what I mean? Or does Foley know Dylan killed Eddie?
I don't think Foley knows Dylan killed Eddie. The last line for Dylan is, a man gets desperate. He does a few things. He knows it won't work. Pretty soon he quits, packs it all in, goes away somewhere. That's the only way there is. And Foley says, have a nice day. And that's the end of it. And what's really chilling about it is Foley's a prick. And he doesn't really care about these human beings. They're chump change to him. They're nothing. And Peter Boyle, Dylan, is this guy who's so duplicitous that he would stab his friend in the back and then say, is there an ambulance around? He just walks away. And this is such a 70s movie because it has that kind of theme where, there is no justice.
Well, what makes this a real depiction of crime is the bad guy wins. Poor Eddie is the schlub who's caught in the middle. He's never going to win.
He was an easy mark.
He says earlier on in the movie, you guys, they go to Florida. They make their money. They go to Florida. Like, I'm never going to get there, basically.
Right.
Poor Eddie, he's just a regular guy.
I'm still looking for a way to pay the plumber.
He's never going to make it, and he doesn't. And the biggest asshole in the movie walks away the hero.
Because he was the smartest one.
Yeah.
Because he knew how to play both sides, and he knows that the mob's not going to take care of him. They're happy. They're happy that
he sells everybody out.
He sells everybody out, but he did it in such a way that he walks away clean. Even Foley knows he ain't clean, but Foley says, "Okay, you did good things for me. That's fine. You got a Scalise. That's fine." There's a shot in the bar when Eddie's sitting there at the bar, and he looks at his hands, and he's got that extra set of knuckles, that busted up hand. And for me, that's Eddie right there. That's his whole life. This busted up knuckle guy who just can't get ahead.
He can't get ahead. Meanwhile, Dylan is just. He's always getting his cash up front.
Right.
That's the metaphor right
there. But that's the difference. This guy was smart enough to get the cash up front, et cetera. Eddie's not that smart. He's just not. So, the script is so tightly constructed.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier on, if you don't pay attention, you're not going to be able to follow it because there are all these different pieces and they fit really nicely together. But you really got to keep your eye on it. But if you do, you pay attention, you have a beautiful payoff.
Well, the great thing about it, it's not overwritten. You have to watch the movie. Everything happens in sequence. You're getting information as characters get it.
Exactly.
And it builds and it builds and it builds, and the picture slowly comes together.
And that's what makes it so much better is you're getting it as the story unfolds.
Yeah.
You're not getting little clues like, hey, wake up,
the only guy that knows everything is Dylan.
Right.
Everybody just, poor Eddie doesn't see everything going on. Even the cop at the end doesn't know the whole story.
I got a piece of trivia for you. See if you can do it, all right? What beer is Dylan serving Eddie from the tap?
Schlitz?
Bingo! Very good, John. Very good. Exactly. Yeah. Schlitz. I read something, and this really sums up what this movie's all about. It says, one of the true treasures of the 1970s, Hollywood filmmaking, a suspenseful crime drama in stark, unforgiving daylight. This is all happening in the light of day, and that's, for me, what makes it even more chilling, because you're not safe in the light of day.
Well, that's all the time we have this week.
We'd like to thank our friend Glenn Arnowitz for his music.
And of course, our listeners for tuning in.
So join us next week for another episode of
Film Detour.
If you like our show, please recommend us to your friends. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and leave a review.
Go to our website at filmdetour.libsyn.com to leave comments or email us with questions. That's filmdetour.libsyn.com. You can also visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And you can also find us on YouTube.